They sent the invitation on a Wednesday, and the message uninviting me followed shortly after. The envelope was thick, pale blue, embossed with silver lettering, the kind you'd expect for a senator's gala or an old money wedding. The front read, Danvers Family Gathering, July 10th, 6 p.m., the Aldridge Grand, Seattle. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I'd seen that hotel name plenty of times. It was on the ledger in my office under Premier Clients, Tier 1. That was my digital signature on the hosting contract. Moments later, my phone buzzed. A text from my cousin Elaine, the designated family planner, always the one to deliver disappointing news with a smile. Hey Mara, just a heads up. Venue's at full capacity this year. Lots of extended guests flying in. It's kind of a black tie thing. Very elevated. Hope that's okay. That emoji, the signature of sanitized exclusion, not a confrontation, just a quiet dismissal. I'd seen it before. Wedding invites that never came. Family threads that skipped my name during job announcements. They never said I failed. They just erased me. I returned to my desk. Rain tapped softly against the window of my 31st floor corner office. The Seattle skyline blurred in gray mist and soft neon. The contract for the Danvers booking was still on my screen, Aldridge Grand. Elaine had submitted it through our concierge platform. Our assistant flagged it for review. I added a 25% surcharge for short notice, high-end bookings, and approved it personally. They had no idea that Mr. Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Holdings, owner of 12 historic properties across the Pacific Northwest, was me. They didn't know the woman who once scrubbed bathrooms on night shifts was now the one signing their invoice. They still called me unpredictable, aimless. Let them. I didn't want their seat. I owned the table. I turned to the shelf and reached for a small walnut frame tucked behind my travel books. Inside it, a cracked plastic name tag, Mara, Housekeeping, Capital Inn, Seattle, 2011. I hadn't looked at it in years, but that night, I placed it right in the center of my desk, just in case I needed a reminder of why I said yes to myself when everyone else said no. My father used to say there were two kinds of people in this world, the ones who carry the name and the ones who carry the weight. He'd say it after family dinners when the dishes were cleared and his second scotch softened his voice. We were supposed to nod to affirm his wisdom, like it was gospel. I was 12 the first time I understood which role he had assigned me, not the name, just the weight. By the time I was 23, I was expected to slide into Caldwell Financial as a junior partner. There was already an office set aside, my name pre-printed on the door, Mara Caldwell, Strategic Development. It lasted 6 months, not because I failed, but because I asked too many questions about layoffs, outsourced janitorial contracts, the pension fund that had mysteriously vanished for dozens of long-time staffers. You think too small, my father had snapped across his mahogany desk. You have no vision. No, I told him. I just want to understand what people carry. That was the last honest exchange we had. After that, our relationship became a silence wrapped in formalities. Birthdays skipped, messages filtered through ants. I enrolled at the University of Washington's Hospitality School. Graduated top of my class. No one came to the ceremony. A year later, I was scrubbing bathrooms at a faded motor lodge off Rainier Avenue. 10 rooms per shift, towels that reeked of bleach and damp cedar. But it was mine. Honest, ground level, built, not gifted. That's when Elaine sent me the group photo from her wedding. Everyone was glowing, suits and champagne smiles. I wasn't in the frame, but I remembered that night well. I sat near the kitchen at a table with a dishwasher on break and a DJ who left early. Elaine told me it was probably because I seemed more comfortable back there. 2 days later, someone forwarded me a screenshot from the family group chat, a photo of my old housekeeping name tag, captioned, "She wanted to clean toilets." Guess she got what she wished for. They laughed. No one defended me. Not even Aunt Ginny, the one who used to sneak me lemon drops and whisper, "You don't have to turn out like the rest of them." That day, I learned something important. Erasure doesn't always come with shouting or slammed doors. Sometimes it just shows up as absence. You get cropped out of enough pictures, left off enough emails, seated far enough from the center of the table. Eventually, even you start to wonder if you were ever really there. So I let go. I stopped waiting to be remembered and started building something that couldn't be dismissed. I moved to Vermont with a duffel bag, a used laptop, and barely enough money to last 12 weeks. There was no grand plan, just a need for somewhere quiet, somewhere no one cared about my last name or the reputation it used to carry. I rented a tiny attic room in a creaky old farmhouse, turned in, run by a retired couple, Irene and Cal. They paid me cash to help with bookings, change linens, manage late check-ins. They gave me room 7, slanted ceiling, one skylight, twin bed. And I loved it. That's where Alone really started, not the company, the idea, in a beat-up spiral notebook filled with questions. Why did some guests return and others never did? What made a stranger feel safe or seen in a room they'd never been in? I watched. I adjusted. A buzzing lamp, a misplaced bench, a sign that confused guests. I fixed them with no budget, just care. People started asking for Mara. Not Miss Caldwell, just Mara. When Irene and Cal decided to sell, I came with data, spreadsheets, and a vision. I made a modest offer. I said yes. I renamed it Alone House, my first property, my first win. I had rooms, no staff, but me. But I poured everything into it. I scrubbed every floorboard, swapped the musty drapes for fresh linen panels, painted each room in soft, calming shades of moss and cream, and left a handwritten card on every nightstand. You're here now. You can rest. Guests remembered that line. I didn't have a PR agency. I didn't need one. Word of mouth did what no billboard could. Guests told their friends. Stories spread. Stories brought interest. Interest brought support. Not millions, not all at once, but enough. Within 4 years, I opened a second property, Alone Ridge, and then a third, Alone Harbor. Each one smaller than the resorts they quietly outperformed. I hired former housekeepers as site leads, gave them titles, trust, and real pay. No stiff uniforms, no fake greetings, just people who knew what it meant to serve with pride, not submission. By 30, Alone had become its own quiet brand, subtle luxury, gentle care, no velvet ropes, no marble fountains, just dignity done well. Still, I didn't put my name on it. The properties were listed under Mr. Caldwell Holdings. Most assumed I was a man. That suited me just fine. I wasn't hiding. I was insulating. The silence gave me space to build something they couldn't tear down. Behind my desk, tucked between fabric swatches and supplier catalogs, I kept the old plastic name tag, Mara, Housekeeping, faded, scratched, cracked straight through the middle. I wore it long after it should have been replaced. Framed it, black frame, no glass, not on the wall, not for show, just for me. Some nights, after the spreadsheets and signatures, I'd hold it, not to revisit the cruelty, but to remember the foundation. I didn't build Alone to prove a point. I built it so no one could ever again tell me I didn't belong. They picked Alone Cascade for the reunion, one of the most exclusive boutique hotels in the state. They had no idea. Elaine booked it through the corporate portal, bragging in the family group chat about pulling strings to secure such a coveted venue. We're lucky, she said. The front office manager told her the owner is very private, but once they saw the family name, they expedited everything. They weren't wrong. I fast-tracked it myself, upgraded them to full service, doubled the staff, imported flowers, approved the linen color scheme myself, digitally, of course. If you felt that moment of quiet triumph with me, don't forget to subscribe. The next chapter is where they finally realize whose building they just walked into. Of course, I hadn't signed anything by hand in years. Silence holds better when you don't leave fingerprints. The reservation listed the host as S. Danvers, booked through Caldwell Hospitality's elite tier. The irony was sharp enough to cut granite. I instructed our guest relations lead, Hannah, to manage the account, smart, steady, and delightfully unaware of family politics. To her, Sophie was just another overly involved client with a flair for drama and color-coded spreadsheets. 1 week out, Sophie requested custom florals, hydrangeas and delphiniums, blue and white. I called Hannah into my office. Treat them kindly, I said, but not delicately. She tilted her head. What do you mean? Don't handle them like crystal. Just serve them exactly the way they've asked to be treated. Hannah nodded, a slow smile forming. She understood more than I needed to explain. That night, I sent one message to Aunt Ginny: "You're coming. Arrive at 6:40. Don't let them come early. It matters." She didn't reply, but I saw it marked read. That was enough. For the next 6 days, I barely slept. I reviewed everything: room flow, lighting, cues, signage, menus. At the last moment, I made one quiet change. The guest suites usually featured a printed welcome from the host family. This time, the card read, "We hope your stay reminds you where you come from and what was never truly lost. Mara." I didn't sign it fully. I didn't have to. On the day of the reunion, I didn't use the front entrance. I walked in through the service hall, past trays of champagne flutes and carts of folded linen, just like I used to. There's something sacred about stepping through the back to reach the center. It keeps you grounded. I wore navy, no jewelry, hair pinned clean. Nothing screamed for attention. The room did that for me. At 6:45, they arrived, first in pairs, then clusters, loud laughs, firm handshakes, all that anxious sparkle of people desperate to be remembered. And Sophie, she entered like a cruise director, waving, beaming, not realizing she was stepping into my house. My father arrived 10 minutes later, flanked by two men I didn't recognize, but knew instantly: finance types, polished shoes, sleek watches, hushed tones. The kind of men who build empires out of spreadsheets and forget the names of the janitors. I watched them from a small monitor tucked in the back hallway, just past the kitchen. Hidden, but not absent. No one missed me. That was the beauty of it. I had been edited out of their story so long ago, their eyes no longer searched for me. But that was about to change. At exactly 7:15, the ballroom lights dimmed ever so slightly, just enough to quiet the chatter, just enough to invite curiosity. Then came the sound, 3 soft chimes, slow and deliberate. Sophie was in the middle of explaining the custom glassware when our guest services manager, Everett, approached her with his signature professionalism and a clipboard in hand. "Miss Danvers," he said gently, "the owner has requested we begin the welcome presentation now." Sophie blinked. "The owner?" "Yes, ma'am." She gave a confused smile. "Oh, I don't think that's necessary. We've already thanked the staff, and I've been coordinating with your office for weeks. The owner doesn't do these things." Everett didn't argue. He simply turned toward the stage, and the screen lit up. Soft navy background, clean serif text, white and quiet, but unmistakable. Alone Cascade, founded by Mara Renee Caldwell, Chief Executive Officer, MRC Group. The room dropped 10 degrees. Sophie's flute slipped from her fingers, shattered against the marble. My father's jaw twitched, but no sound followed. From the back, someone whispered, "Wait, what?" I stepped onto the landing above the ballroom, heels clicking, hair pinned, navy dress. I looked exactly like the woman they insisted I'd never become. "Good evening," I said, steady, calm. "I know most of you didn't expect to see me here tonight." Pause. A nervous chuckle. One table tried to laugh. "I wasn't invited, after all," I said, a beat. "But I thought it was time someone welcomed you properly to Alone Cascade." I let my gaze move across the crowd. "After all, you're standing in my home." Chairs shifted, mouths opened, whispers spilled. Sophie took a step forward, flushed and frantic. "Mara, what are you doing?" I met her eyes, cool, clear. "Exactly what you taught me. Making an entrance." "You booked this hotel under your name," I said, voice level. "You claim the owner gave you a courtesy rate because of the Danver family name." That part was true. "I gave you exactly what you asked for, plus 20%. My voice didn't shake. That was the victory. "For years, you all spoke of me like I was some distant shame. A housekeeper, a dropout, the girl who wasted her name. You told people I disappeared. But I didn't. You just stopped looking." I scanned the room. Faces older, stiffer, still painted with the same brittle surprise. Their discomfort wasn't new. It was just louder now that the story had changed. My father stood. "Mara," he said, voice rough, unreadable. "You own this place?" "I own 17, I answered calmly. "Across 4 countries." He didn't respond. He didn't have to. I'm not here for a standing ovation, I added. I came to return something. I gave a small nod toward Hannah. She stepped in with 2 team members, each carrying sleek black folders, one for every guest. Inside, a signed copy of their event contract, my name, Mr. Caldwell, their rates itemized, and a single note. Sometimes the story you tried to erase still finds its way to the wall. Near the back, Aunt Ginny let out a soft, knowing laugh. An older man beside my father stood. "Why didn't you use your full name from the start?" he asked gently. I paused. Because I wanted to build something before anyone decided what it was supposed to be. He nodded, quiet understanding in his eyes. As I stepped away, the ballroom dimmed not in lights, but in noise. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. The VIP suite Sophie had insisted on calling about 4 times to secure was quietly reassigned to a diplomat, a late arrival, very pregnant. Sophie's new room was still lovely, of course, but it faced the alley. It was the same room type I used to clean for $9.75 an hour. My father never came to find me, but Aunt Ginny did. She knocked on my office door a little after 11 p.m. I didn't invite her in. She didn't ask. She just handed me an envelope. Inside was a photograph I hadn't seen in decades. I was maybe 8, on the back porch of the old Danvers house, gripping a lemonade pitcher with both hands. My father's hand rested gently on my shoulder. I remembered that day, not for anything big, but because I spilled the lemonade minutes after, terrified I'd be scolded, but no one said a word. They laughed. That was the last time I remembered feeling like I belonged. On the back, in Ginny's looping script, "You were part of us." That was all. She walked away before I could say anything. The next morning, I took the elevator to the service floor. The housekeeping team was starting their shift. A few nodded. One young woman smiled, then quickly looked away. I walked to the old supply room, now our break space. There was still a coat rack near the back wall. From my bag, I pulled the framed name tag, Mara Housekeeping. I hung it above the jackets. No plaque, no spotlight, just wood and a nail. Later that day, Sophie left a note in her room. "You didn't deserve what we did." I didn't know how to undo it. Elaine. I didn't reply. But the following spring, when the reunion invites went out, the return address read, M.R. Khaled Al-barring HTML tags. If my story resonated with you, subscribe and stay. I didn't build alone to prove a point. I built it so people like us had a place. Comment below and tell me, what did they try to erase in you? Your voice matters, even when it starts as a whisper.